So let's talk about the 2026 Autism Conference schedule. I know. Sounds kind of dry, right? Just a list of dates and cities. But what if I told you it's actually a map? A map that literally shows us where a whole community is headed.
Yeah, that's really the big idea we're going to dig into today. This calendar, it's way more than just logistics. Think of it as a guide to the priorities, the passions, and yeah, even some of the splits happening in the autism community right now. When you look at who's meeting up, where they're going, and what's on their agenda, you can actually see the future starting to unfold.
And what this map shows us is, well, it's pretty fascinating. See, in 2026, the autism community isn't just one single big group. Nope. It's more like a collection of different ecosystems, almost like parallel universes coexisting. Each one has its own lingo, its own priorities, and a totally different idea of what the future should be. So let's dive in and explore these different worlds.
Okay, first up, you've got what I'd call the science and practice core. This is the traditional, established foundation of the whole field, you know? It's where clinical research and hard data, that's the bedrock of everything. This whole world is really built on a few massive pillars. You've got huge events like ABAI, that's the Association for Behavior Analysis International, gathering practitioners in New York. Then, over in Long Beach, you have the DADD conference, which is all about educators. And for the real deep dive researchers, there's INSAR, the International Society for Autism Research, meeting all the way in Prague. These are the big ones that really anchor the year in data, scientific discovery, and evidence-based practice. And honestly, this quote from ABA's mission statement, it just sums up their whole philosophy perfectly. It's all about pushing the field forward through rigorous science. The language is super precise, very academic, all focused on the growth and vitality of the science of behavior analysis. This is really the intellectual engine driving so much of the field. All right, now let's jump to a totally different world. This next ecosystem, it wasn't built in a lab, it was built in the living room. This is a world created for caregivers, and it's all about the practical, messy, day-to-day reality of life.
You can feel the change in vibe immediately with this quote from the Autism Health and Abilities Conference. It's not about data. They talk about caregiving as a calling. The language is just so emotional, so supportive and personal. This isn't some stuffy scientific symposium, you know? It's more like a sanctuary. And you can see that focus crystal clear in their workshops. I mean, look at these topics: guardianship, financial planning, how to manage aggressive behavior, even how to navigate interactions with law enforcement. These are the tough, real-world things that keep families up at night. It's a universe away from talking about statistical models or cellular biology, right? Okay, and that brings us to our third world. This is an ecosystem that's really emerged as a powerful counterstory to that traditional clinical model. We're talking about the world of neurodiversity. And here, the focus is way less on treatment and way more on identity and community. And nowhere is that difference clearer than in the language they use. The clinical world, it talks about intervention, science, therapy. But then you have events like neurodivergent, and their vocabulary is totally different: community, celebration, friendships, adventure. This isn't just swapping out a few words. This is a complete, fundamental reframing of the entire conversation. This quote from neurodivergent really gets to the heart of it. The goal here isn't to fix or to manage, it's to connect. It's all about building positive relationships, a real sense of belonging for people who, as they put it, think, plan, and process differently. In this world, finding your tribe is way more important than finding a therapist. Okay, so we've got these three very different worlds, right? The scientists, the caregivers, and the community builders. But what happens when we zoom out a bit? Are there any big trends that cut across all of them? Well, it turns out the 2026 landscape shows some pretty critical shifts for the entire field. There are really three huge trends we're seeing pop up. First, there's this new clinical term, profound autism. Second, we're seeing tech and biology getting woven directly into practice. And third, there's a big economic split happening in how people can even get a hold of this information in the first place. Let's break each of those down. So, first up, profound autism. This is a really significant new term, a new clinical category. And it's not just talk, it's being formally recognized at events like the Profound Autism Summit, and it's even its own research track at INSAR. What this tells us is that the field is finally, officially admitting that a one-size-fits-all approach just doesn't cut it, especially for individuals who need the highest levels of support. Second trend, tech is officially leaving the sci-fi realm and becoming a real clinical tool.
In 2026, you've got events like the ARTS Symposium in Florida, and their whole focus is on bringing stuff like AI, neuroscience, and genetics out of the dusty research labs and putting them directly into the hands of people working in the field. This points to a future where treatment is a mix of behavioral science and hard biological data. And finally, let's talk money. We're seeing a major economic split. On one side, you have these premium, super expensive in-person conferences like ABAI in San Francisco. But on the other side, you have groups like the Autism Society of Minnesota who've moved their whole conference online specifically to make it more affordable for their community. This is creating a huge gap between these high-end, exclusive experiences and accessible virtual learning. So we've just taken a tour through these really different ecosystems, right? The world of the scientist, the world of the caregiver, and the world of the self-advocate. It kind of makes you wonder, what does this all mean for the future? As this community keeps branching out into these separate worlds, one focused on science, another on caregiving, and a third on identity, it leaves us with a really big question. Can one single field actually serve all of these different paths? Can the language of the lab, the living room, and the community meetup all exist under one roof? That's really the big challenge, and maybe the biggest opportunity for 2026 and beyond.